But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in and welcome to the Career Growth as a Woman in Tech with our amazing sponsors, Arista. So today we have 5 wonderful female panelists to really give insight into their own personal experiences and opinions from I think, a really unique and really interesting perspective as a woman in technology. So the format of this event will be an AMA, so it's an Ask Me Anything style, which includes some pre-prepared questions in the first half hour, and in the second half hour, we'll basically get questions from the audience. So this will be in the form of a Slido. So hopefully the Slido link should pop up soon in the chat. So I have like Leanna or Cam, you put that in the chat. So yeah, feel free to take the opportunity to really have any of your questions where it's about women in tech, career growth, or, Arista in general, have them personally answered by people in the industry. So yeah, just make sure to everyone out there listening to really be engaged with the Slido, since the second half hour will be mostly asking questions for you guys. So you can upvote questions that you really want answered, and you can give some of the questions that you want to be answered too. Yeah, so let's move on. So about Arista Networks. So who are Arista Networks and what do they do? So we have this nice short intro here. So Arista Networks is an exciting and fast-growing company creating the best software and hardware for running high-performance networks. Their clients include data center providers, cloud providers, service providers, or telecommunication companies, companies building their own enterprise networks, and finance companies like high-frequency traders. So yeah, hopefully that gives a better insight of who Arista Networks are, and you can always feel free to put your own questions in the Slido link. Yeah, so now we're going to introduce our panelists. So each panelist, I'll go through each in order as shown on the presentation that we have here. So first up, we have Becky Wong. So I'll let Becky introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Becky. I'm a full stack engineer or developer based here in Sydney. So I tend to work on a lot of the internal web applications that support other engineers in the company.
Yep, thanks for that nice intro. Next, we'll move on to Deepa. So Deepa, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Deepa Vallu-Shekhar. I'm an FPGA engineer at Arista Networks in Sydney. I work on developing and implementing FPGA-based solutions for networking.
Yep, thanks very much. Next, we have Uliana. So I'll let Uliana introduce herself.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. My name is Uliana Lisavik, and I'm working as Deepa. I'm an FPGA engineer, and I'm developing firmware for MetaWatch application, the application which performs network traffic capture with high resolution timestamping for network monitoring, and I'm based in Sydney.
All right, thanks for that great introduction. So next we have Padmini. So I'll have Padmini introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Padmini Mishra. I'm an engineering manager in Arista's Cloud Vision product, and that is a network management plane for telemetry, analytics, and automation. And I'm based in the company headquarters at Santa Clara in California.
Yep. And last but not least, we have Tula. So Tula, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Tula Kreiser. I'm a platform engineer based in Santa Clara, and I develop solutions for a very special, I believe, chip inside of Arista that I'll talk a little bit more later.
Yeah, so thanks all the panelists for giving such a nice short introductions about yourself. So you can really see how we have panelists from a range of different backgrounds and even different from the US. So that's really cool. Yeah, so that was a bit about our panelists. I think now we can move on to the pre-prepared questions that we have today. So the first question that we have is, what was your personal career pathway to the position you have currently? And this sort of leads on to, how did you decide which career direction to pursue? I will have each panelist answer this question. So I guess let's start with Uliana. So we'll start with you to answer this question.
Okay, hello. When I was thinking about this question, it made me realize that my whole career path was affected by mostly three people. They got some influence on my life. This is special people, and I'm grateful to them. And it was my father, and it was my professor in uni, my mentor, and my first employer, my first boss. So getting more into details, so my father, he inculcated me with love for everything related to computers. So I decided to enroll to computer engineering faculty in Radio Electronics University in Ukraine, which is my home country. And there, after 4 years of studies, I was still not sure what to do, what exact direction I would like to go. So, and then my mentor, he suggested me to look at programmable logic, FPGAs, and get some presentation, some research ready to present to other students. And then I realized how amazing FPGAs are. So I decided I would like to career. Sorry, so I would like to proceed in this field. And so anyway, I got my first small FPGA job, which was slightly related to FPGAs. And I was quite happy, quite comfortable at some time, but at the end, I realized it was not exactly what I wanted. So I talked to my boss, and he said, I got a lot of potential, and I can proceed, I can find a proper FPGA design job. So I was looking everywhere and ended up in Australia, working for Altera as application engineer. And it was lots of fun for some time. I was working there for a couple of years. And eventually I decided, so I need to get more into design, participate more in design decisions, and to work with new technologies. So this is how I ended up with Arista. Here I'm quite happy for the moment because I can do what I love. I can design FPGAs, system with FPGAs, and I have a very good, great, motivating team working with new technologies and concepts. And this is very rewarding and interesting. That's my short story. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that short story. So next, to answer this question, we'll have Becky. So Becky, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, sure. So I studied at UNSW as a software engineer. And to be honest, at the end of my degree, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do either. However, I did do a thesis where I did a little bit of front-end development, and I quite enjoyed it. So I kept that in mind when I was looking for a job. So the first place I got employed at was actually at Telstra as a graduate. And I did a few rotations there. I was very lucky that I was able to get some experience doing things like user experience design, as well as a lot more front-end development as well. And that also made me realize, okay, I like front-end development, but I also like doing, a little bit of everything else. And after some time, Telstra is a really big company. It's a big corporate company, very slow going. And unfortunately, they also don't do a lot of actual coding, or they don't have teams that do it. So I decided it was time for me to move on to a role that involves a little bit more coding. And that's how I ended up as a full stack developer in a company called Metamako at the time, based in Sydney, that made networking devices. I really enjoyed my role there. Like I said, full stack development, I did a bit of everything, front end, back end development, the glue that sticks everything together, including like deployments and things like that. And I found that very interesting. And eventually Metamako got acquired by Arista. And at the time I was like, not sure what's going to happen. It's a big company compared to, a small company like Metamako. But I really enjoyed my time at Arista. I basically had my old job, except, in a bigger scale. I was able to work on a lot more different web applications and continue doing what I love doing. And it's quite nice because like Arista itself is also, even though it's a bigger company, there's a lot of freedom to do things that you want to do. So even if, I want to try my hand on like, something slightly different than just full stack development, it's very easy to find those little tiny projects to work on. So yeah, that's basically how I got to where I am today.
Yeah, very nicely answered. Next we'll move to Deepa. So Deepa, I'll let you answer this question.
Yeah, so my personal career pathway started around 17 years ago. But on a rough note, I'll be honest with this. So I did my engineering in electronics and instrumentation in the year 2003. But unfortunately, at that time in India, we didn't have any campus recruitment for electronics and instrumentation. So I just took up a job, and since we weren't very financially well off at that time, I just took up a job which was nowhere related to engineering. But then as time progressed, I realized that, this is not what I wanted to do. There was a reason I did my engineering. And so what I did was I just quit my job one fine day, and then I started preparing for the entrance exams that are conducted by different IT giants in India at that time. So finally, I got my first breakthrough with Wipro Technologies, where I joined as a project engineer. And I got an opportunity to work on different small modules, which were part of larger systems at that time. And one of my most defining moments in my career came when I transitioned from service-based companies to product-based companies like Intel and MediaTek. So with Intel, I got a very good mentor in the form of my manager, and I got an opportunity to work on SOC platforms, which broadened my perspective. So throughout my career in India, I got an opportunity to work on different languages like Verilog, VHDL, System Verilog, which was focused on verification using different tools and methodologies. And 2 years back, I moved to Sydney from India, and with Arista Networks now, I have got an opportunity to work on FPGA design, development, implementation, timing analysis, and black box testing as well. So while my career in India helped me develop my skill in verification, Arista Networks now has really helped me to expand my horizon into FPGA design and development as well. And throughout my career pathway, I have always worked, and I am still working with great teams at Arista Networks who are very inclusive. And so my experience has been like, for women who really want to join this technology sector, there's a lot of support available now. Thank you.
Yeah, it was definitely really interesting listening to how you progressed your career in India too. So thanks for that. So next we'll move to Padmini to answer this question. So take it away, Padmini.
Thank you, Rebecca. So I was always interested in science and math when I was in middle and high school. So as I started looking into college applications, I found computer science to be an interesting major. And I had not done so much related to computers till then, but I was interested. So I decided to get my undergraduate degree in computer science in India. And after my undergrad, I came to US for master's in computer science with a major in networking. And so once I graduated from there, I was very excited to start my first job at Cisco Systems because I was interested in system software at that time. And so then I worked on various multicast protocols at Cisco Systems and then at Juniper Networks before I joined Arista. And at Arista, I started off working in the routing protocols area as well. Then after a few years, I wanted to work on something different. Since I had been working in system software for many years, I wanted to work on cloud-based software. And so that's where I really like how flexible Arista is. And I learned about this new project called OpenConfig for streaming data out of the switches. And I joined that project, and then I enjoyed a lot building the team for this product. And sometime later, when an opportunity came up to work on another cloud-based product called CloudVision, I decided to move to that team. And that was my path to the current product area where I am in. By this time, I was already doing the functions of a manager in addition to my technical role. So when the team grew and I was offered the official manager position, I decided to give it a try. So I'm currently leading a team of about 10 engineers and managing a few projects in the CloudVision product. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Padmini. That was a really nice answer. So then last but not least, we have Tula. So Tula, I'll let you also answer this question.
Okay, so I'm originally from Brazil, so we all came from different countries, different, I guess, realities. And as I was about to choose my major, one important aspect for me was I want to make sure I have a job when I finish my university, if I put all the effort I could. So one of the very respected majors in Brazil is engineer. As an engineer, you can work in banks. You have a lot of flexibility in the areas you're going to go. You don't need to be in business to work on a bank, for example. And one engineer, but I didn't know what engineer. Engineer had so many specializations. Computer science wasn't that big of a deal at the time that I was graduating there. So I choose one specialization in engineering called industrial engineering, which pretty much allows you to have classes in all types of specializations. As I was going through the engineering university, the first 3 years were just basic classes that were shared among all specializations. And I started my first year in industrial engineering, and I heard about this class on computer science, on computers. It was an extension class, a 1.5 year extension class. It was about programming computers. And it was supposed to give you like a heads up on the job market if you had that degree. So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna do it. It was at night. In the morning, I was doing like electronic engineering, industrial engineering. At night, I was going to that computer class. I got trained in not sleeping and caffeine drinking, so I did not advise this kind of thing. But I started this class, and that class was an eye-opening for me. I really enjoy programming. So by the end of that class, I had already 1 year at the industrial engineering, but I decided that my field was computer. So I had 3 options at that particular point in time. I could finish the industrial engineering and get a degree on that. I could change to electronic engineering, which had a bunch of computer science classes, or I could get a computer science degree. Computer science degree, I had to restart my university. They didn't just like move you over. So the more I felt like the best path for me was to go to move to EE. So I ended up finishing my major in EE. And by the time I was finishing my major, I got an internship on digital equipment, which became Compaq, which became HP. So I don't know how many of you heard of digital equipment. And interesting enough, also in Brazil, we are moving from a dictatorship kind of government to a more democratic government. And one thing that was happening was the business was opening. Technology, at that time we could get technology from outside of Brazil. And I was in the telecommunication area in DEC. Was super exciting. We are feeling like we are changing the way Brazil do telecommunications. So as an intern, I was working in network management. We are trying to get all the crazy switches that the government acquired, completely different technologies, and trying to provide like a unique interface so people could just manage them in an easier fashion. And I was finishing my university. And I had another question in my head, because I also like research. So my doubt was, should I stay at the university? Should I get a master's degree? Should I go for my PhD? Or should I continue working because it's so exciting? We are changing how the country is doing things. So I decided I'm going to do both. And I went for a master's degree in computer science at that time. And I was still working in network management. As I was going through my master's degree, what was very clear for me was that I was in a very high level point on the stack. And the more you work on the stack, on a higher point on your stack, you have your black boxes that are bigger. And I wanted to solve all the problems. We didn't have access to the source code at that time, even though it was DEC. We were getting the source code from other engineering team in DEC. And we had some bugs because we were integrating things, and we had always to work around it. So I decided, you know what, I need to go somewhere that I can have more access to the code. So luckily I moved to US inside of DEC, they transferred me, and I started working on a kernel team in Cupertino, California. Got a lot of exposure to what is kernel programming. I definitely was very close to finding, I could solve a lot of my bugs. They're still hard where they are to be a black box for you, but it was way easier to solve bugs. You had the code in front of you. After 5 years, I decided, you know, I need to change a little bit. So I went to Microsoft, great Seattle area, had a lot of exposure again to kernel. I started working kernel in Microsoft, but after a while, I actually changed to compilers. But unfortunately, the gray weather there didn't work for me. So I came back to California, decided to go back to kernel, started working file systems. And then an opportunity to move to Cisco came. So I started working at Cisco again in network management. Arista was a big name at the time, was still a startup. So I decided to give it a try and have a startup on my career as well. Join Arista. At the beginning, I was working with configuration management, but after a while, I got an opportunity to work in platforms. And I end up in the platform team, have been working with this super interesting chip that we can do a lot of different things like load balancers, NAT, bunch of different technologies with it. And that's where I am right now.
Yeah, thanks for that really nice response. Yeah, so just keep in mind the time. We'll just move straight on to the next question. So this question is, what has been the most rewarding part of working in tech in your career so far? So we'll have one panelist answer this question. So Uliana, I have you answer this question now. So take it away.
Okay, thank you. So generally, we all understand that working in tech is really cool. So we saw all technology completely change the world in the last decades with internet, social media, artificial intelligence, blockchain, and so on and so on. So, and you can be in the middle of this. You can make the difference, and your possibilities are endless. Variety of paths you can choose in technology is pretty much unlimited. And I personally feel it. Of course, you are not always inventing something big and new. Sometimes you just changing your spreadsheet, but you feel like you're part of something bigger and a part of the team, which makes changes happen. And I personally like being in a company of very smart and proactive people, and we encourage each other together. We create things together, and it's very rewarding to see it works. So every day you see a small fruit of your creativity, and it's a beautiful thing and makes you happy. Maybe it sounds a bit of abstract, but probably you have already done something like some code or app or device, and you remember how good you feel when you put a lot of effort and it finally starts to work. So, and this feeling is very rewarding, and you can feel it every day, and it's really fun. So, and not to mention, it's also well paid. So I encourage you to find your own path in tech and have your own fun. Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of endless possibilities, and I personally can connect with whenever your code works. It's a very good feeling. Yeah, so we'll move on to the next question. So what are the biggest challenges you faced as a woman in your job? And I think we have Deepa to answer this question. So take it away, Deepa.
Thank you. So I do think it's important to also talk about the challenges so that we grow. So there are challenges that come as part of your company's policies or working culture. So for example, at the time when I started, there was no work from home or flexible timing. In fact, we weren't even allowed to take the laptop back home. So though the policies are similar for both gender, this is more of a challenge for women in particular once they start their families or start having children. So this means that you cannot stay back late to complete a project, or you cannot take up additional responsibilities. And then there are challenges that come as part of your personality of being a woman, and more so if you are from a conservative family. So for example, women in general find it difficult to ask for that hike, or be assertive in a meeting, or they may end up communicating also passively. So, but fortunately, the scale of all these challenges have reduced to a large extent. And, the environment has become more inclusive of women today. But, unfortunately, the biggest challenge that still exists today is the gender gap. This means that there are very less female role models that we can look up to. And this doesn't feel normal. And sometimes, women can end up feeling lonely. So it's very important to encourage more women to join the technology sector. And, it's all the more important that we do not pass the same set of challenges from one generation to another. So while women coming in can have a new set of challenge, they shouldn't have to keep fighting the same battle. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that really insightful and really empowering response. Yeah, that was a really good response.
Thank you.
Yeah, so next, for the next question, we have, what changes have you seen in women in technology in the past few years? So I think we have Tula to answer this question. So I'll let Tula answer now.
Yeah, so we still have a lot to go, but what I've seen in the last couple of years is more women in leadership, even though, as my colleague mentioned before, we still don't have enough, but at least there are some. We have a lot of forum where we can get answers on how to behave if you're having problems with your workplace, and you can get some suggestions. In general, I see women being a little bit more vocal about what are the demands. We are having some, corporations are helping a little bit with you being able to bring your laptop home. And that's definitely bringing more women to the workplace and avoiding that question, should I continue with my career, or should I just focus on family? Because now you're able to do both.
Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute button, so let me try and go back. Okay. Yeah, so we're up to here. Sorry about that. Yeah, so that was a really good response too. And yeah, personally, as like a student right now in tech, it's really interesting to see what changes are being made for the future. So like when I go into industry. Yeah, so the next question is, how do women support each other at Arista or in like the technology industry in general? So we have Padmini to answer this question. So I'll let her answer now.
Thanks, Rebecca. Yeah, so some of the things that Tula and Deepa have already touched on. So to expand on that traditionally in tech, there has been less representation of women, and there was less intentional effort to try to have more women in the tech field. But in the last decade or so, there has been much more awareness of the issue, that there is lack of, just the issue, people being aware of the issue that there is lack of women representation, and that there are benefits to having gender diversity in the workplace. So there are other more industry conferences like Grace Hopper Conference that support women in tech. And there are more and more organizations in companies led by women to support women engineers. And there are also great organizations like Girls Who Code that inspire younger girls to pursue careers in tech. So at Arista, we have a group called Women at Arista, which I'm part of, and it is aimed at increasing gender diversity at Arista. Through this group, we have implemented programs like outreach to university or conferences to generate a larger pool of women applicants for engineering roles. We also realized that it's important to give a perspective to the prospective applicants what it is like to be a woman in Arista's engineering organization. So we have women on the interview panel. And finally, once women are hired at Arista, we're working on a mentorship program that pairs women with mentors who can guide them as they navigate their career in tech. And we also build awareness on issues and offer training like unconscious bias training for employees, and support each other through this group, the one that I mentioned, Women at Arista, where we meet monthly to discuss issues related to women in engineering and what we can do about it, and brainstorm ideas and come up with solutions. And we, as the members of this group, try to make that solution implemented and push for and provide better, make the environment better for all the women at Arista. So this group just continually works towards improving the work experience of women in engineering at Arista.
Thank you for answering that question. Yeah, we're a bit behind, but so I think for the next question, we might only have one panelist answer, unfortunately, because we won't have time at the end for the Slido from the audience. So for this question, it's what further changes do you believe need to be made in the future for a more balanced and gender diverse workforce in technology? Yeah, so if you do have more time at the end, we could get the second panelist to answer this, but I'll have Tula answer this since I think Padmini answered the last question. So yeah, Tula, I'll let you answer this.
Yeah, sure. I can actually try to summarize a little bit, because a lot of the things we already touched in terms of education and awareness, we really believe that the more people understand that there are differences and there are ways of working together, but we just need to realize the differences. We need to talk about issues that women are facing so we can correct them. And people will know about the issues and they will be more aware of that, and awareness let people don't commit the same mistakes. We also believe in workplace support. The more you have programs inside of the company that allows you to take time to spend time with your family, or have corporate level career advancements. Recruiting, we need to have a more women-friendly recruiting platform, and make sure that the recruiters know that there is a bias towards recruiting somebody that is more equal to you. So use this knowledge when you're trying to make your recruitment.
Thanks for that really good response, especially on like how we can make recruitment the first step in making the workforce more gender diverse. So thanks for that response. Yeah, so I think we'll move straight on to the next question. So yeah, what advice would you give for young women entering the technology workforce? So yes, since we have university students here today, entering the workforce, then I think this is a really good question. So we have Becky. So I'll get Becky answer this question. So take it away, Becky.
Yeah, sure. So my general advice is try new things and never stop learning. There'll always be times where you won't know something, or you will have to learn something new. And even though it can be daunting and can be outside of your comfort zone, it's also like an opportunity for you to learn and to also improve yourself. But at the same time, if you have this attitude, you'll continue to also build your resilience and confidence as well as you go on, and you'll also be able to open up more opportunities for yourself. Another bit of advice I also want to give is that get involved in general. So specifically, as a woman in tech, get involved in things. The more visibility there is of of other women in the technology space, the more you will also tell other women and empower them as well to also get into the space. It's not just like where we're half the population, and we can also be half the workforce as well in technology.
Yeah, that was a really nice finishing sentence. And yeah, I personally also find that advice really helpful. So thanks for that, Becky. Yeah, so that ends our pre-prepared questions. And now we can move on to the answers from the audience section of the event. So I think I'll let Camille or Liana. I think they've been like scouring through the Slido questions, and I'll let them start picking which questions to choose. So Camille or Liana, which question are we
Can
going to
you
have
hear me
first?
okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for the wonderful responses so far. It's been really interesting. So we have a lot of questions from the floor as well. I'll go through these one at a time, and I'll just open it up to the floor so any of the panelists can just turn on their mics and answer if you feel like it applies to you. So I think I'll start with this question. It says, do you ever struggle with confidence, and how do you overcome that?
Okay, I'll take this up. So I think there are two issues here. There can be an external factor as well as there can be an internal factor. So, external factor happens when there's an unconscious bias happening in your workplace. So what this does is it strips off your confidence, and this can make you less competent, and you might start losing your interest. And this again, losing your competence again means that there's a bias to not give you more work, and this becomes a cycle that it's difficult to break into. And then there are factors that is actually internal, and this can happen irrespective of the gender. So losing confidence can happen to anyone at any time. But what I believe is, like, just focus on the work at, whenever that thought comes in, just focus on the work at hand instead of overthinking, and you might always come out of it successfully. So
Thank you. I think that's really wonderful. Yeah, please go ahead.
Add to this one? Okay, so I used to have lots of confidence issue before when I was less experienced. I was feeling very disturbed. Then I was talking to some other people, and they feel smarter than me, or they understand more than I understand. And eventually I found out it's not because they are much more smarter, but just because they spend much more time in working on this issue. Maybe they're years experience. So they just have more time to look at this issue, understand. So I just realized, so I need to, if I want to know something, I just need to spend time learning, and then I have more confidence in. So it's just a question of how time experience is in matter, not because you're stupid or something.
Great, thank you very much for that. Did anyone else want to add to that question? The second question is actually very similar. It was asking about imposter syndrome and how you can overcome that as well. So is there anyone else that would like to add to this?
I can add a little bit to that. Sorry, Tula, were you trying to say?
No, go for it. Absolutely, go for it.
Okay. Now, I was thinking about it, that it's probably something that happens to people, whether they are male or female, but I definitely did go through that before. Like what would happen is that I would put in a lot of effort and do a lot of work and would be doing well, but I was not sure that am I doing as well as everybody else or as well as my male colleagues or not. And to break out of that, it takes time, I think, and to kind of see that, well, every review I am being told that I'm doing well. And so I know that I'm doing well. And at some point you kind of then start believing that, yes, I'm doing great. I'm doing well. I am similar or better than many of my male colleagues. And it's not really about me not doing well or anything like that. And the other thing that helps is having a trusted friend or maybe a mentor who you can kind of bounce ideas with and say, look, this is where I am at and this is what I'm doing. And so having that encouragement or like a sounding board kind of person who can reassure you, who can be truthful and honest with you to tell you if you're not doing something okay, but at the time reassure you if you're doing well. And that helps, I think, overcome, having such a confidence or imposter syndrome issues.
I think that's great advice to definitely kind of think about the positive side of everything as you move forward. Thank you for that. I might move on to the next question. So the question is, what does the ratio of men to women look like within Arista itself?
But Vinny, do you want to take this one? I can take this one.
Sure, I'll take that. So, I mean, overall, probably like 20-25% women in the workforce in Arista. But if it's maybe like little less in engineering, because engineering is a little bit harder hit, and it's harder to have more. I mean, that's why the whole Women at Arista effort to try to get more women in the candidate pool pipeline, and then have them also the women who are at Arista to have them more mentorship opportunities, so that they can be, you know, they have a mentor who helps them navigate their career, because having more women in the pool helps get more women in the workforce, which helps more women to be in like manager, director, or VP kind of roles, so that they can be role models to the existing employees and also to prospective employees. So that's kind of our goal for engineering. So hopefully we'll be there soon. But yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
Great, thank you for that. It's good as long as there's kind of the positive progression through it. I think that's the important part, isn't it? Okay, I'll move on to the next question here. This is a bit of an open-ended question, kind of asking, what's the best career decision that you've made over the years? And I guess if you could frame this as kind of advice for the students that they can take on board for their future as well.
And so I can, I guess, talk a little bit about my experience. Yeah, one of the best career decisions I've ever made was when I decided to leave my first ever job at Telstra to go into like a tech company, well, like a proper software company, I suppose, because Telstra is a bit telecommunications. So for me, like, you know, it's my first job. I've done a lot of rotations. I was very comfortable being in that company. You know, everything was familiar and I knew what I was doing. But, you know, at the same time, like I wasn't quite, you know, getting the fulfillment I wanted out of, you know, my degree, as well as like, you know, it wasn't as interesting as it used to be anymore. And it did actually take me quite a bit of time before I decided, yep, I'm going to start looking for a new job. I'm going to start applying because, you know, besides getting a grad job, I haven't had like looked for another job before. Making that decision to start applying and getting that new job and moving to something different was definitely the best career decision, because I was finally able to change, you know, my environment, finally be able to work on something that I was interested in and go in the direction that I wanted to for my career path.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sarah. Don't be afraid to take the next step forward.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. Sometimes like, yeah, don't get too comfortable. And it's daunting, as I've said before, but sometimes you need to just make that leap of faith.
Great. Thank you for the advice. Did maybe one other person want to answer this question as well?
I can take it if nobody else is, or unless Tula, do you want to take that one?
Sure, I can take it. My experience actually was very similar to Becky. One of the best career decisions I made was actually leaving Brazil and coming to US to work with software development, because I was working integrating software, and it was very comfortable. I was growing my career in Brazil. It was my language, it was my country, but I really wanted to do software development, and I didn't have that opportunity there. So I made this huge leap of faith, and I came to US, and I was exposed to a completely different culture. Well, California is amazing. You have a lot of diversity, so that was also a bonus. But this change of career from just working integration of products to software engineering was the right decision for me as well.
Great, thank you so much for that. Okay, so I'll move on to the next question here. And so this one goes back to something that was mentioned briefly in some of the pre-prepared questions, but someone is asking, are you worried about falling behind your male peers if you want to have children and take time off? And so maybe a bit of commentary about what the current situation would be like if someone wants to answer this question.
So I would like to answer this. Like this fear is very real, and I have actually experienced it at a time when, you know, I transitioned from there was a phase where I had to move to US for a short amount of time from India. This was a family decision that we had to make, and though my husband was working at that time, I had to quit my job at Wipro Technologies and then move to US. And at that time, it is true that I couldn't find a support for going on a break for a longer period of time. But coming back, I was worried at that time, like, I'm really falling behind, sitting at home for a year almost. But then what I realized is when I came back, it was all the more the same, and I could come back even stronger. It really didn't make a difference for teams and companies that really want to recruit you back. So all that made a difference is how you during the interview, or how do you perform during your comeback. So though that fear is very real, but and does pull our confidence at that time when we are actually taking a break. But then you can come out of it if you constantly work on it. That's what my experience is. Yeah.
Okay, that's great to hear. Thank you for sharing that. Did anyone else want to answer this question? Yeah.
Yeah, I can take that as well. So I can share my experience there. So I have 3 children, and I had one at each of the companies that I have worked for. And over the course of some of them have bigger gaps too. So what I realized is, yes, as Deepa said, the worry is definitely real. But doing what you need and finding support for this, if you can, helps how you progress, where you take your career. I mean, I've been really, really lucky in all 3 cases to have supportive managers, and that the companies themselves also, I mean, what I noticed was the first kid was at Cisco compared to the third at Arista, I mean, and about 12 years apart. So in that much time, there has been a lot of progress in terms of what you can get as time off, while as a right for you, and not have to worry about losing your job. I mean, maybe what you get paid may not be as great, but at least you will not lose your job. And so you can take the time off without worrying about, is it okay or is it not? And then having the support to have flexible, like for example, when I had my second child, I went back to work after the maternity leave was over. But then after 8 months or so, I was like, no, I think with 2 kids, I really want more time, and it's not working, it's too busy. So I took leave of absence for about 8 months, and then came back to working. And then I came back and I told my manager, I want to come back to work, but I want to work from home full time. Is that possible? And then he was like, yeah, sure. I mean, you are a great engineer. You've been working well. Why not? So then I went back and did that. And so that was pretty good for me at that time, because it helped. And then when I had the third child, I mean, by then there were lots of support in the rules in the US, where you could take time off at varying periods in the whole year before your child turned 1 year old. So it helped me. And also it helped me to have support system around at home, so that the things that don't need to be taken care of by me, somebody else can take care of it. And then I can do things that I really do want to, and that make a difference. So I think that you may have to juggle a little bit and figure out where you can have an equilibrium that works in your lifestyle, but it's doable.
Great, thank you for that. It's really good to hear that you've personally kind of seen the improvements over the years as well in the industry. So I think that's a really good thing. Okay, so I'll move on to the next question here. So this one is a little bit similar to, we're talking about the hardships that someone answered in the pre-prepared question. So someone's asking, have you encountered sexism or hardship yourself within the tech industry, and maybe kind of your advice on those kinds of situations?
Nobody else have an answer? I can take this one. Yeah, definitely. Unfortunately, that's a reality. We are evolving on that, but there are cases where you're gonna. I had cases, especially on meetings. You try to talk, and how your voice is different than a man's voice, and sometimes some comments are thrown on the heat of the moment. My advice is just try to, if something don't reply right away. I don't think it's ever a good idea to reply right away if you are confronted. Give it some time and then talk with the person. Majority of the time, it's not something that it's on purpose. It was really on the heat of the moment.
Great, thank you for that. That's a very professional way to handle the situation, definitely.
Another thing that we actually have been chatting a lot on our women's meeting is if you have other women in the table, there's even a term for that, but we need to protect each other. So make sure you have an ally that can help you with these situations as well.
Great, thank you. Did anyone else want to answer this question?
No, I just wanted to comment. It was a great answer. Yeah, we need to amplify each other's voices as, you know, women, and maintain that sisterhood, and that's what will help us, you know, move forward.
Yeah, definitely wonderful advice. Thank you for that answer. Okay, so maybe we have time for a couple more questions. So the next one here is, there was a few questions about kind of networking as a skill and what advice you would have to build that skill or how you can utilize it.
I can attempt that. So, I mean, one advice that I give is that don't be afraid. Do reach out to people. More than likely, most people are actually willing to help if they know how, or if they know that you want help. And so that's something that's helpful. I know it's easier said than done because it depends on the personality of the person. Some people are open to talk, and others are shy. But like doing it and if that is the case, like, I mean, I was like in the beginning a bit of a shy person, but what helped me was to basically, before I went anywhere, I would have pre-prepared things. Like I would prepare and practice if I was going to speak somewhere, or if I was even going to speak to someone for networking. And having that kind of, once you practice something so much, then it takes out the scare and the shyness out of it, and then you can build yourself to have that skill. I mean, it's possible to acquire that skill by some practice. So I think that's the advice that I would give, is that if you're not sure or if you're shy, then practice in front of the mirror, or in front of, like, write down what you want to say and then practice.
I think that's excellent advice. Networking and kind of socializing is definitely a skill that you can build up, isn't it?
And also what helped me to ask questions is just understanding that other people, they are willing to help. So if someone asks me a question, I'm happy to help, and it makes me feel good. So if you ask him a question, it's actually not a bad thing, it's a good thing.
Definitely, don't be afraid to reach out. That's great advice. Thank you. So I'll quickly move on to, maybe we'll make this the last question. And I think this is a good one since we have such such varied background here. So someone was asking, how did you overcome the culture shock, particularly to those who have kind of moved around different countries? I think this is a good question.
I can start, I guess. Observation. I think it's key to observe what other people are doing, how they react, and how really listen. Be a good listener.
How long did it take you to adjust when you moved to a new country?
To US from Brazil? Probably, I would say the first year I was still, I still sometimes use the Brazilian culture to assess some situations, but I still learning. The first year was probably the hardest.
That's true. It's a continual learning process, even after many years, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Great, thank you for that. And maybe one other person, if you want to add to that answer.
Yeah, I think it's the same. Yeah, you have to be a very good observer, and I think not only when you move between countries, even when I started during the early part of my career, when I moved from one part of India to another part, from south to north, even there's a cultural difference. So it exists everywhere, I believe, and yeah, and it's an ongoing process. You just have to keep learning to adapt yourself to new ways and new teams, and try to become a part of it. Yeah.
Would you say you pick up something new and you learn a lot each time that you move?
Yeah, it's an ongoing learning process.
Of course.
Yeah. Each time you make some mistake and then you learn. That's how it like goes on. Yeah.
Great. Okay, thank you so much for those responses, and thank you for the questions from the floor as well. We're hitting 11 now, so I might hand over back to Rebecca to wrap things up.
Yeah, thanks, Camille, for being really structured in the slider responses. We're coming to the conclusion of this event. So I'd just like to, thank you so much for, especially to all the Arista panelists that we have here today, for giving such really insightful responses on a topic that is actually quite important within the technology industry. And, volunteering yourself and being able to open your voice as your perspective as a woman. I think that's something we need now more than ever. I also definitely think that the fact that CSC SOC has given us all a great opportunity to host these kind of events, and the fact that we have people interested and more people will watch the recording eventually when it comes up on YouTube is just really a great sign to see we're heading on the right direction from a more diverse and inclusive community. So I want to thank the panelists again, because it's really your actions now that really pave the way for having a more diverse workforce for people like us, university students. So thanks. I also like to thank the students here today, especially considering that it is, it can be quite early for people, especially uni students, up late coding, I guess. So I hope you got a lot out of this event. There was a lot of really interesting talking points and discussion points that our panelists brought up. So hopefully you learned something today. I definitely learned a lot about all the different international panelists, what their experiences are like in different countries and different cultures. So that was really interesting. So thanks for the audience for also giving really interesting questions too, and also upvoting on the slider. So yeah, that was my little spiel for the conclusion. So I think we'll end it here. Thanks everyone again for attending, and hopefully we'll see you guys in the future for more CSC SOC events. So thanks everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.